Good morning to you, everyone, everywhere, here in the sanctuary, on Zoom, and on YouTube. My name is Norm Horofker, and I'm the proud minister of this congregation, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax. Jessica Friesen is our music director. Marie-Claude Leroux is our director of religious exploration for children and youth. Paul Galbraith and John Piccolo are working together as volunteer directors and technicians this morning. And Troy Saunier, the president of our board, is our service assistant this morning. So thank you all. This morning, if you haven't noticed, is the last day of the month of January. So today we're going to do something different, something a little less formal. Troy and I will be using our imagination, given that the theme for the month is imagination. We'll be thinking about the future of our religious community here at UUCH. During the service today, the chat function will be open, and I invite you to extend our hospitality by saying hello to anyone that you don't recognize, that you haven't seen for a while, or you just want to say hello to. And if you're new and you would like to, you can leave a message in the chat box for us. If you're not already receiving notifications from our church, you can contact me at minister@uuch.ca to be added to our listserv. I'm happy to do that. Before we proceed, we have a few announcements. The order of service was sent out last night, and it has more detail on all of the following announcements. Just a reminder again that every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. we have a little break the isolation Zoom call for people to call in and chat. And we've started structuring a little bit by talking about the upcoming service, and I'm looking for ideas that I might use in the service just to give us something to focus on. We have resumed services in the sanctuary. If you're planning to attend, we ask that you contact Margaret Galbraith so that we can manage logistics. But if somehow that doesn't happen, come on out, we'll manage. But Margaret would appreciate a call ahead of time. United Nations Interfaith Harmony Week is coming up this coming week. It's all being virtual, and there's more information again in the order of service. We have three different teams meeting in the coming week. The RE, Religious Exploration team, is meeting on Wednesday. The Truth and Reconciliation team is meeting on Friday. And the Global Climate Crisis team, which is just getting started, or just getting revitalized, is meeting, when is that? February the 3rd, Wednesday, February 3rd at 7 p.m. Again, more detail in the order of service. Next Sunday morning is going to be a bit unusual. Everyone gets to sleep in if you would like to. There won't be any morning service here from the church because the Canadian Unitarian Council and ministers across the country have organized a national service, which, because of time zones, will be in different places at different times. And here in Halifax, it'll be at 2 o'clock next Sunday afternoon. The title is A Faith Worth Failing For. And there is more detail, again, in the order of service. And there will be a virtual collection taken during that service. This is an annual service titled Sharing Our Faith, where we raise money for a specific fundraising project for the CUC. So you're invited to make a virtual contribution next Sunday. And now we can relax as Jessica helps us to prepare for our time together with our prelude.
Please sit back, relax, and let's listen to some jazz by Dave Brubeck entitled I Love Vienna.
you, Jessica. Each Sunday we have a different member of our Truth and Reconciliation team to remind us of our relationship with the Indigenous peoples of Nova Scotia and of Canada. This morning I welcome Amy Moonshadow to do that.
We acknowledge today we are on the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples, and in truth and friendship, it is our personal responsibility to maintain a mutually respectful relationship with the Indigenous peoples of Kamitak and ourselves, the settlers here, in order to build trust that affirms our historical agreements and never to forget to address the ongoing needs for reconciliation. For in healing our nations, together we can create a more equitable and inclusive society here on Turtle Island.
Thank you, Amy. And now Troy Saunier has an important message for us. Over to you, Troy.
Thanks, Norm. As I think most folks are very familiar with now, and those who are joining us as new observers on YouTube, we want to remind everyone that, of course, our operations for the church is actually handled through yearly pledges that the rest of the congregation does with great generosity, and especially through this last year in 2020 with everything that happened in the pandemic, the generosity was extremely well received. And it's been helping us deal with moving towards a living wage for our staff. In fact, just recently, someone reached out to increase their pledge beyond what they had already committed to. So for anyone who has the means and would like to, feel free to reach out to do that. Today, though, we specifically want to honor the tradition of sharing the plate. And we do that to help others in the community specifically. And this morning, we'd like to really recognize all the amazing work that the Saturday Brunch team does and the value that it brings, especially during the pandemic, to those less fortunate around the neighborhood or those simply who need some physical, some social contact. So while they come up to the church to get their bagged lunch, they at least get to see a few faces. And so as part of that, we'd like you to consider making a donation specifically this Sunday to the Saturday Brunch program and to the benefit of all our neighbors. And you can do that by sending an e-transfer to treasurer@uuch.ca, by mailing a check to the church, or for those of you who used to bring loose change and put it into the offertory plate, you could have an envelope near where you watch our Sunday service and start filling it with your loose change so that we know eventually we'll all be together in person again and you can bring this big envelope of loose change. It will have a big impact to celebrate us all being back in person. Thank you very much for all your generosity.
And thank you, Troy. So now as we cross the threshold into the formal part of our service, I invite Troy to read our service chalice lighting words while I light the chalice here in the sanctuary.
Thanks, Norm. This is adapted from the writings of Sharon Wiley. May our time together this morning be comfort in a confrontation. May we here find peace in times of tumult, and may we invite tumult in lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be a place you consider what you never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world.
And now, Jessica will lead us in our opening hymn. And since the service this morning is about imagining our future together, I'm going to put Jessica on the spot. to share something that she might imagine for the future of music here in the life of our congregation.
So I imagine everyone participating in the congregation, either with their voice or with instruments, all walks of life coming together, singing different songs of everyone's cultures and traditions and backgrounds and celebrating each other. Basically, I imagine a big party in the sanctuary full of music. So please help me make that happen when we can be together. So please sing along with me. I know I can. Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles would have every turn, I know I can go on. Though sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey's long, and though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, come on, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits our return, we know we can go on. Oh, I know we will go on.
And now, Marie-Claude has a wonderful story to tell us all about imagining alternatives in difficult situations. Over to you, Marie-Claude.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a young woman who had a difficult choice to make. And I'm going to ask you what you think she should do. So when that time comes, you can respond via the chat button at the bottom of your screen. This is the tale of two pebbles. Many hundreds of years ago, in a small Italian town, a merchant had the misfortune of owing a large sum of money to the moneylender. The moneylender, who was greedy and cold, fancied the merchant's kind-hearted daughter, so he proposed a bargain. He said that he would forego the merchant's debt if he could marry his daughter. Both the merchant and his daughter were horrified by the proposal. The moneylender told them that he would put a black pebble and a white pebble in an empty bag. The girl would then have to pick one pebble from the bag. If she picked the black pebble, she would become the moneylender's wife, and her father's debt would be forgiven. If she picked the white pebble, she need not marry him, and her father's debt would still be forgiven. But if she refused to pick a pebble, her father would be thrown in jail. They were standing on a pebble-strewn path in the merchant's garden, and as they talked, the moneylender bent over to pick up the two pebbles. As he picked them up, the sharp-eyed girl noticed that he had picked up 2 black pebbles and put them into the bag. He then asked the girl to pick her pebble from the bag. So now I ask, what would you have done if you were the girl? Is there any solutions that you can think of? Would you pick a pebble? If anyone wants to give me some ideas via chat, I'll share them.
I would hope that she had a white pebble, had some white pebbles in her pocket to start with.
Did Amy say something?
Amy was suggesting it would be good if she had a couple of white pebbles in her pocket.
That would be great to have a couple of extra white pebbles. Troy suggested using sleight of hand to show a white pebble. Pam's suggesting to tell the moneylender that you want to change the colors. Oh, that's a good idea. Edith suggests she should tell him just tell him right out. He picked 2 black pebbles. And Anne suggesting to take out both to show the game was rigged. Those are all great suggestions. If she refused, her father would end up in jail. If she showed that there were 2 black pebbles, we could expose him as a cheat. But I wonder what that would bring about in terms of his loan. If she picks a black pebble and sacrifices herself, that would make a life filled with misery. So let's find out in the story what the girl did in the end. So she did, in fact, put her hand into the money bag and drew out a pebble. But similar to Troy's idea, without actually looking at it, she fumbled and let them both fall onto the pebble-strewn path, where it immediately became lost among the pebbles, the one that she picked. And so how clumsy of me, she said. But never mind, if you look into the bag for the 1 pebble that's left, you'll be able to tell which pebble I picked. So since the moneylender didn't dare admit his dishonesty, and the remaining pebble in the bag was black, it had to be assumed that she had picked the white one. So sometimes it does take some quick and creative imagination to look beyond the obvious solutions to a pretty complex situation.
Thank you, Marie-Claude. We should all be so quick-witted when we're confronted with a difficult situation. But I'm going to put you on the spot now. Since we're imagining the future of our congregation, what ideas might you imagine for our religious exploration program?
I imagine some youth-led environmental and social justice initiatives that are in directions that matter to them. I imagine a thriving young adult program, a young adult religious exploration program where gathering and connecting with each other and with the whole congregation becomes a regular part of their lives. And I imagine gatherings and programs for all ages, times together where the children and the youth and the parents and members of all ages of the congregation and community are engaged together and enrich and growing in connection. Those are some of the ideas that I imagine for religious exploration.
This is a sacred time in our service. It's a time that we set apart to honor the many sorrows and the many joys that you, the congregation, are living with every day, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. Today, I'll ask Jessica, as usual, to light 1 candle for all those who are here with us or in our thoughts who are struggling at this time, mentally, physically, financially, or emotionally. And then Jessica will light a 2nd candle for all the joys that are with us today in the room here in the sanctuary, with you at home, the big joys that come along only infrequently, and the little joys we're blessed with every day if we have eyes to see them. And Jessica will light 1 candle again for the members and friends of our community who are shut in long-term care homes. A candle for John Patterson and Marie Davis and Arisha Cox and Ann Wood and Norm Sabowitz. Each week, I invite anyone with a joy or a sorrow to share at this time to relay their thoughts to me by email. And this morning, I'd like to light a candle again for Peter and Mary Ellen Ono. Peter is at home, but in the care of palliative services. But this week, it's a candle of joy in that we were able to arrange an online concert with his fellow members of the after choir band, and it was a joy for everyone involved. And a candle for Amy Moonshadow, who's with us here this morning, who's still uncertain about where she's going to be moving. And she's expecting to move sometime shortly.
If anybody's got knows of a good place to go, let me know. If anyone's got an affordable, under $800 a month, one-bedroom apartment.
I'll repeat that. Amy's just saying if anyone knows of an apartment, one-bedroom apartment under $800 a month, please let her know. She's still looking for the right place. So later, when we stop the live streaming on YouTube and before the coffee hour begins, I'll invite anyone else to share a joy or a sorrow if they would like to do so. And now, Jessica will present our reflective hymn.
I know this rose will open, number 396. The words will be on the screen like always. Please sing along with me. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. Let's sing that again. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know my soul will open. Think about the words. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
May the joys and sorrows, both those acknowledged here this morning and those held in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, weave us together in the interdependent fabric of community that is our beloved community. And now, Troy has a reading for us, a reading about the limits of our imagination.
Like unmuted. Okay, this is a reading from Adrienne Murray Brown, and I thought it was very apt as well. There is an edge beyond which we cannot grasp the scale of our universe, that border, that outer boundary of imagination, the only known edge of existence, the only one we can prove by universal experience. We can imagine so much, if perhaps it is a function of our collective minds, a dream of our endless nights, and there will be an abundance so long as we can imagine it, an abundance of earth, if we can imagine it, or abundance of earths, a sphere for every tribe and every combination. And to have it all we need to do is remember there is an edge and grow our dreams beyond it.
Thank you, Troy. And now, instead of a reflection from the minister, Troy and I are going to have a bit of a dialogue about imagining the future of our church. It is the end of the month and the last service on our theme of imagination. We have we've been given an amazing gift here with this church in Halifax, founded, as you know, in 1837. We've been passed on a wonderful legacy, an inheritance, if you will, that we carry on today. Between 1837 and now, no one could have imagined all of the things that have taken place, all of the bumps in the journey, all of the different twists and turns in the road as we've traveled to get us here today. And no one could have imagined in 1837 that we'd be doing this on Zoom. So the question that's before us this morning perhaps can be phrased as, what would it take to be a good ancestor? Because there will be Unitarian Universalists following behind us. Hopefully long after we're gone, there'll be other people keeping the flame alive. So what can we imagine for a future that we could be a part of, that would make us good ancestors? Troy, I turn it over to you.
I thought we would start perhaps this little discussion between Norm and I with a little bit of a reason why the Sonias are at UUCH. And I don't know if perhaps whoever has the slides can just for a second bring up that slide into the foreground. And I entitled it UUs Are Unique. So it's almost a U cubed. And for those of you who are familiar with Cape Breton, you may recognize this picture. It's Iona, the Highland historic village. I've cropped out, unfortunately, the little hut from Scotland there, but it really brings back memories. And I recall very distinctly visiting as a family this nice little town, and our son Tristan pointing up at the church that you see in the middle of the picture and saying, "Mama, Papa, what's that building? What is that building for?" And we immediately thought to ourselves, maybe we have a little bit of work to do to ensure that the experiences that our children have are diversified, and they can really understand the perspective of all the people around in the world. And it was really about trying to make sure we could find a community that accomplished that goal, that really prided itself on different points of view and had a sense of spirituality, but also a sense of good and morality. And so we went church shopping. And some of you may have heard this story before, so I apologize for the repetition. But we went church shopping and went to some churches in the area that had amazing music, others that were very large in community. And so, it was easy to find some like-minded people. But invariably, we found ourselves faced with a dogma for each of these services that we went to, and having to explain to the children after the service, well, that's not really what we believe. We believe that, everyone should have the right, their own opinion, their own thoughts, their own beliefs. And together, those beliefs make us special, knit us together. And it's kind of like the concept of multiculturalism versus colonialism. So it's the idea that we want to celebrate that difference, that individuality of each of the members. And so one of the things I think makes our UUCH so unique, and UUs in general unique, and the reason we ended up at UUCH is exactly that. We're not secular, and there's lots of organizations you can go to that help with that social justice, not having any spirituality involved. But here at UUCH, we really want to celebrate all the different faith traditions from our members and really understand so that it's not about tolerance, but acceptance, and the fact that together with those differences, we're actually way better off. So I truly believe that. And I think that's one of the things that makes us unique. There's lots of things that makes us, that gives us the potential to be great, but this is one of our really, in business speak, unique value propositions. So I know when I'm talking to folks out and about in town, whenever that happens, given the pandemic, it's one of the things I'm really proud of from a UU perspective, that not just tolerance, but acceptance of unique points of view.
Thank you, Troy. When you told us the story about how you found our congregation, I'm thinking back to when Janet and I first walked into a UU congregation, and very different circumstances. We had seen just a very small little ad in the classified section of the newspaper, which doesn't exist anymore, I guess. But it was just a very small ad, said, are you interested in meeting some people who are more interested about how we live our lives every day than what's going to happen after we die? Something to that effect. I wish I had cut it out. But it made me think it would be interesting to do a complete poll of everybody in our congregation as to how they found Unitarian Universalism. Some were lucky enough to be born into the tradition. And everyone else has a different story. We could compile all of that. Anyway, and I also like the phrase what was the word? Not colonial, or colonialism, or the phrase maybe religious colonialism I never thought of before, versus multiculturalism. I'm going to use that. We are a unique community. We're respectful of religion. We see life as a journey, and we're not afraid of discussing religious questions openly and respectfully. So as we talk later today about what it means to be a good, or during this service, what it means to be a good ancestor, to me it's how we present ourselves to the world in that respectful way. We don't have creed or dogma. That is the one thing that makes us unique from every other religion that I'm aware of. And when you extrapolate from that, if we don't have creed or dogma, then we welcome people of very different beliefs than our own. And if we take the broadest view of what it means to have a religious community, then we welcome people with very different perspectives, not only in traditional religious sense, but in political sense as well. It's a place where people can gather respectfully, people of goodwill, exchange ideas, learn from each other, leave after a gathering a little bit wiser than we were when we arrived.
Okay, so I wanted to just briefly mention one of the things Norm talked about was this idea that we're good ancestors. So one of the ways we can be a good ancestor is to make sure that we, ensure that future generations are going to continue with the support they need. So we have the benefit of the West Trust Fund. We have the benefit of this beautiful building that some of us are in today, and hopefully all of us will be in soon. And that's basic. That's because of the people who came before us had a little bit of planning, some forethought, and wanted to make sure that things continued because they found how great it was. So some of the things that we're doing at UUCH are, for example, the endowment fund, which will provide funding in the future going forward. Some of the other things that I think we can do, and things that I'm imagining, and Norm and I've had a number of discussions over this month thinking about some of these ideas, are to utilize the assets we have and start to bring a wider circle around the benefits that we have together as a community. So some of you may have heard this idea before, and before people get concerned that we're going to start a construction project or anything like that, we're thinking about 5500 as a social hub. It's a beautiful space. We do have renters, but I think we'd like to see more organizations use the space, especially as the restrictions for the pandemic start to relax, for things that are aligned with our overall mission and ideals and goals. And so anything we can do to help there, to help other folks advance their own goals that are aligned, that's tremendous. But something really simple, a simple idea sometimes can make a big difference. And so the idea of potentially having a place for people to stop in the center of the South End downtown, grab an artisan coffee and sit down for a discussion, an intellectual or spiritual or community-based discussion. How can we make our lives better? What's troubling me today? Any number of different discussions. And this doesn't have to be a full coffee shop. You'll see later, we're talking about the value of the word church. And so I'll just plant the seed for that a little bit later as to what it could stand for. But essentially, we could see, I envision us having a pop-up little coffee shop where we bring an espresso machine down, we make some nice coffee for the folks who walk through the door, a little sign out front in the spring or the summer as the weather starts to warm up. And maybe it's a great entrepreneurial experience for some of the young adults or youth. I see a lemonade stand in July and August as people walk down English Street and are automatically brought towards our building because they see a bunch of kids doing things that they did when they were young. So at the end of the day, how can we widen our arms towards the rest of the community so that they can see the really cool community that we've built here and help us make it bigger?
Thank you, Troy. So you briefly mentioned the pandemic, and there are things that we're really looking forward to doing here in person in our sanctuary in the south end of Halifax, as we said. But again, we are the only Universalist Unitarian Church in the Maritime Provinces that has a full-time minister. And the pandemic, with all of the problems that it's created for us, has given us this gift of online services. And we're now able to reach out, certainly within our time zone, would be easy to spread our message. And we're doing that now because people can attend services virtually, can watch on YouTube. And just wanted to share with you something that's in the newsletter, in my notes in the newsletter. I got a call from the minister in Bangor, Maine. And I had started a discussion with him a couple of years ago when we were planning to hold the CUC conference here in Halifax to try and get as many people from the Northeast coming to Halifax for that conference. So I guess we planted a seed because he called me the other day or sent me an email and said, we're doing services online in Bangor. Could we join with you and do a service jointly between Bangor, Maine and Halifax, Nova Scotia? And I think that's just a wonderful idea. The ability to connect across time zones, across national boundaries, to be with others who are of our faith tradition. And so I'm talking here about Bangor, Maine, and building bridges, if you will, between different congregations and different people scattered throughout the Maritimes. But on that topic of building bridges, that's fundamental to our faith tradition. If you come back to the acknowledgement that we have neither creed nor dogma, then we welcome people with very different backgrounds and very different interpretations and very different understandings of what it means to lead a good life and how society should be organized. And we need people building bridges in this time more than ever in my lifetime. I've never experienced such polarization, such differences between opinions, and we need a place where people of goodwill can come together, listen to each other respectfully, and as I've said before, leave maybe a little wiser than they were when they first came. So I'm hoping that that'll be part of the vision of our future, this idea that we are a place for building bridges. Troy.
So moving on, one of the things that we wanted to highlight here is we're seeing south of the border huge divisiveness in the community and this left versus right. And I think at the end of the day, everyone's point of view is valid and is worth discussing. The real issue is integrity and honesty and truth. And one of the other great things that you use in the past and continue to do is seekers of truth. I think everyone here could, say that they pride themselves on being as much as possible critical thinkers, challenging the truth, challenging the dogma. We're not going to sit here and have someone at the pulpit tell us this is what thou shalt believe. And Norm's been very clear that that's not his role. His role and the role of UU ministers and lay-led discussions and committees of various different discussion are really to plant the seed of uncertainty and plant that requirement to challenge the truth and make sure that we're taking all of those sources and coming to the best truth that we can find. I grabbed these just from the internet quickly, and there are two main things here that I wanted to impart. One is the fact that, unfortunately, beyond connecting people, which was the initial kind of value of social media, there's a lot of fake news in social media. And increasingly, I find in a lot of the circles that I travel in that people will read a headline or see something in their news feed and assume that it's true, and they're being manipulated, unfortunately. And I know that in our own congregation, we likely, or probably less likely to do that. But I think one of the things we can do is maybe help the rest of our community understand that critical thinking is so important, and that as an overall global society, it is essential that we get back to science-based facts. And even science-based facts sometimes need to be challenged. There are science-based facts that find their way into our regular everyday vernacular because they've been proven, and people typically don't go reading a bunch of research papers and citations. But sometimes we have to make sure that we really think about all these facts that are out there. So we want to help people not be growing their noses inadvertently, as you see over on the right. So this is just a quick slide that I found from Open University in the UK, and it really talks about trying to ensure that we're challenging our perception of truth on an ongoing basis, and we're doing that by understanding where the information came from, how was it gathered, who did the actual experiments for it. Let's debate it, let's discuss it, let's talk about facts as opposed to opinions when we're talking about truth. Be open-minded, searching for the truth, inquiring, and have a fair and balanced view of our own beliefs as well as others. So it's not just about challenging everyone else, but it's about challenging your own beliefs and your own truths. And so that's another thing that I think we can do. And when I think about our future, I think about UUCH being active in trying to promote critical thinking, whether it's critical thinking of our youth through RE, whether it's critical thinking of the people that we meet on the street who may not be UUs. I think we can really make a difference. Over to you, Norm.
Thank you, Troy. Yes, I'll pick up on that last point in particular, that it would seem to me, I don't have young children now, but I've got grandchildren who aren't quite ready for RE yet, but will be soon. I would want my children and my grandchildren to learn the art of critical thinking, to be able to hear something presented and then remain skeptical and search for reliable information to determine what's accurate and what isn't. I think it's a skill that all parents should want their children to develop, and it could be the kind of seed that grows our religious exploration program.
Norm,
Yes.
there's one thing that I should have added that I'll add as homework for everyone. Everyone is our truth seekers here, and they love to do some extra work. So if you haven't ever seen it, and I suspect some people have, go take a search for the House Hippo video, which was a CBC, I believe, little video done way back in the day. And that demonstrates that point of making sure that you challenge truths that you're being told. Go ahead, Norm.
Thank you, Troy. Following up on something else Troy said is that I don't stand in the pulpit here and preach that, this is what you should believe. But when I use my imagination about what our church could be in the future, one of the things that I haven't done very well to date, I don't think, is to use our prophetic voice. I mean, to really point out the injustices, I don't think evils are too strong a word, in our society today. And one of the things that has always held me back is that trained as an engineer, I don't generally bring up a problem or get involved with a problem unless I'm also getting involved with the fix and the solution. And some of the problems that we deal with are complicated, are very difficult to crack. And so maybe we hold back from expressing the fact that something just is evil, something just is wrong. And it may not be my job or our job as a congregation to fix it, but we need to raise the awareness of the problem. And I use, for example, homelessness in winter in the city of Nova Scotia. That's just wrong. I don't have the answer in my pocket right now, but there's just no way that should be tolerated. We really need to be working as a community to resolve that. And that's one issue that I think, when I think of imagine our future, that our prophetic voice, where we hold those things up and demand from our leaders and our politicians that they figure out some of the answers and move forward. That's not a nut that can't be cracked. That's a problem that can be dealt with. So I just see a stronger voice for social justice, a stronger prophetic voice when I imagine our future together. Okay, now we saved this for the last, and Troy planted a bit of a seed. Maybe we can put up the next slide. So the question is the word church holding us back? We've been the Universalist Church and then the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax since 1837. And in 1837, it was very important that we be known as a church. We were heretics, but we were proud, coming from Christian roots, we were proud heretics, and we had just as much right as anyone else to claim to be in the Christian faith tradition. But as most of you know, if you would look that word up today in a dictionary or in Wikipedia or somewhere, you'll get a definition that says something like a Christian house of worship. And we're not exactly that anymore. We've changed. And more to the point, when we imagine our future, that word carries a lot of baggage. And when you tell someone you're going to the church, they immediately get an image of what that is and what that means. And it usually involves dogma of some form, and usually Christian dogma. And we have at least one member of our church that I don't think you would mind me mentioning it because it's happened in the sanctuary before, but his family is of a Hindu background, a Hindu faith tradition. And when he tells them he's attending the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax, he then has to go into a long explanation of that he hasn't converted to Christianity, that this is not a typical Christian church. And when we talk to people that come in, and on Saturday, just yesterday, we had our brunch and we had a few people around the table, and these are people from the neighborhood. And I asked them about the name and said, what do you think of that name? Is that an asset, calling yourselves a church in this day and age, or not? And they were unanimous, this group at the table at least, were unanimous to say no. People have a certain impression of what a church is, and this is something bigger than what most people think of as a church. So I'm going to open that up and toss it over to the president to deal with that.
Thanks, Norm. So you raised some really good points. I agree with, some of our congregants may find it difficult, and oftentimes the sense that I get is we keep the word church for historical reasons, and it's too much of a pain to change, and not everybody's in agreement, and so we just carry on with it the way it is. But there's another big impact of church being in our name, and that is especially young adults and potentially youth have a different impression of what it is, and it may actually be holding back some of, say, the university community and in and around the South End from trying us out simply because that's in our name. And I think of all of the times that we've done these retreats and workshops and visioning and strategy for what we want to be for the future, and invariably there's one word that comes to mind and that people talk about in terms of why they value being at UUCH. And of course, social justice comes up and growing spirituality comes up. But one universal thing, regardless of whether it's people are atheistic, are agnostic, or Hindu, or Buddhist, or formerly Catholic, or Aboriginal, community is the word that everyone kind of universally brings up, something that knits us together, and connection is something that humans need and crave. So before I kind of mention a potential new name for UUCH, keeping the same acronym, the seed I planted earlier is, maybe we should be called the Universalist Unitarian Coffee House, which would be great. We could keep the same letters, same website, if we implement the other idea, right? But in all seriousness, it could be Universalist Unitarian Community of Halifax. Marilyn in the chat suggested something really short and sweet. Halifax Unitarians, that's great too. So I think really, and I'm hoping as we're nearing the end of our formal service, when we get to our coffee hour, we can spark some really good discussion, and we continue that discussion going forward in terms of what a better name for us might be. That'll be more reflective of the reality of our existence as part of UUCH, and also more welcoming to potentially other members with their diversity that will improve us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Incidentally, the invitation from Bangor came from the, I think it's the Unitarian Society of Bangor. So the idea of dropping church from the title of a Unitarian Universalist faith community is not new and not really revolutionary. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our dialogue and discussion. I think we've planted some seeds for further work in the congregation and further imagining of what our future can be and and how we can be good ancestors for those who follow behind. And now I would like to invite Jess and James to perform for us for the interlude. We tried to have live music the last service of every month, and the after choir hasn't been meeting regularly, but Jess and James have been able to keep the tradition going, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Norm. This is a song called Gathering of Spirits by Carrie Newcomer. Carrie is spelled C-A-R-R-I-E, so if you're looking her up on the internet, that's the spelling. And she does have house concerts, and she's a wonderful singer-songwriter. The song here talks about a gathering of spirits, that a group getting together is like a festival of friends, and that we always take up where we left off when we meet again. And so the spirit of this church is sort of embodied in that, and also some of the lyrics are indicative. Let it go, my love, my truest, let it sail on silver wings. Life's a twinkling, that's for certain, but it's such a fine thing. There's a gathering of spirits, there's a festival of friends, and we'll take up where we left off when we all meet again. I can't explain it, couldn't if I tried, how the only thing we carry are the things we hold inside, like a day in the open, like a love we won't forget, like the laughter that we started and hasn't died down yet. Let it go, my love, my truest, let it sail on silver wings. Life's a twinkling, that's for certain, but it's such a fine thing. There's a gathering of spirits, there's a festival of friends, and we'll take up where we left off when we all meet again.
Oh yeah, now didn't we? Don't we make it shine? Are we standing in the center of
such a fine thing. There's a gathering of spirits, there's a festival of friends, and we'll take up where we left off when we all meet again, just east of Eden. But there's heaven in our midst, and we're never really all that far from those we love and miss, laid out in the water. There's a glory all around, and the wise say there's 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Let it go, my love, my truest, let it sail on silver wings. Life's a twinkling, that's for certain, but it's such a fine thing. There's a gathering of spirits, there's a festival of friends, and we'll take up where we left off when we all meet again. And we'll take up where we left off when we all meet again.
Thank you. Just beautiful. Thanks so much. Well, I hope that the dialogue this morning has got you thinking about what our future together could be like and what kind of an organization, church or otherwise, will be here when we are gone. Before a closing hymn, I'd like to share a reading that reminds us to enjoy the challenges ahead, knowing that the work is never complete. In taking borrowing words from the song we just heard, life's a twinkling, that's for certain, but it's such a fine thing. This reading is entitled Unfinished Business by Kelly Weissman Asbruth Jackson. Dear great lathe of heaven, O foundry of souls, you churning, burning cosmos, which has brought me to the infinite loom of your celestial body, spinning stars and indifferent stones, hear my prayer. Do not curse me to perish with all my dreams fulfilled. Do not afflict me with a vision so narrow and a heart so small that all my greatest hopes could be accomplished within a single lifetime. Rather, bless me with an unquiet spirit. Anoint me with impertinent oils. Grant me dreams so great and so numerous that I might spend the fullness of my days to realize them and have ample remaining to leave to my inheritors. Holy gyre that bore me and must one day take me home, allow me the mercy to depart this life with unfinished business. And now, Jessica will lead us in our closing hymn, leading us towards a new land. May that image always call us onward.
Come and go with me to that land. I want to hear you loud and proud, here in the congregation and at home, like always. Words will be on the screen. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to the land. be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound.
Thank you, Jessica. Can't wait till the sanctuary is full again,
Yes.
Good. Thank you all for coming. This is the seed group. We're going to grow this over the weeks to come. So I'll close with this quote from one of our spiritual ancestors. Henry David Thoreau left us these words. If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost, for that is where they should be. But now, put the foundations under them. May it be so, and amen. Thank you all who attended the service today here in the sanctuary by Zoom or by YouTube. I will say goodbye now to those who joined us on YouTube as we end our live streaming. Thank you again for coming. And remember, next Sunday's service is at 2 p.m. Go in peace.